is that? Oh my gosh. Welcome to Radical Books and Politics. I think we're streaming. I'm going to check. But I just saw this fantastic t-shirt, which I'm going to totally exaggerate and what about again. Nah, it's going to say wait until oh, wait. Hold up. It's stinking. It's doing the roundy thing. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so all right. Welcome to Radical Books and Politics. I'm Jesus Estrada. It is an incredible pleasure to have Joshua Marsella. Y'all probably got totally spammed by my little short and my stories and all that. So well worth it because I had the pleasure of having Josh today on New Year's Day. What? Add a way to start the new year. Okay, yo, that t-shirt, it's dope. Where did you get that shirt? Oh my gosh, what the
well, I went up to this fall. There was a there's a company called Onset Cinema, and they did a live showing of the Pet Sematary movie at the location. There's an Elks Lodge in Ellsworth, which is like 2 or more hours away from here, and they did a live showing of Pet Sematary, the original movie, in like the back parking lot, and then right in the woods is actually where the actual cemetery was set up when they made the movie. So you could go back there and see where the big rock was and all that. And they were selling these shirts, and I had to get one. I love it.
See, well, I loved your other shirt too. I did the meme, or I guess it's the digital poster. I gotta get my terminology right. It's the digital poster, and then I did the poster for the story. And I was like, the hell? It said books are fun to read, but then it had the picture of a pagan with a satanic symbol or a pagan symbol. And I laughed when I was like, nice.
That's another one of my favorites. It's Qwerty.com. They have a lot of good sites.
I gotta get cool. Hey, we got a viewer. What's up, viewer? Say hello. Another viewer. Hello. Welcome. So I gotta get cool about my t-shirts. And so anyway, enough of me. Joshua, can I call you Joshua? You go by Joshua.
And he is fine.
No problem. I've only known Joshua for a few days, weeks, was it? But I feel like we're kindred.
Probably 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're kindred spirits because we both write. Well, I try to write horror, but I'm gonna talk about this amazing book. I keep calling it a novelette, but shit, it's a book called Scratches.
Yeah.
And also, his sequel, Severed. And Joshua, tell the viewers about you.
Well, I'm a stay-at-home dad. I stay home with my 2 boys, and I'm married, and we live in Maine, central Maine. I've lived here. I live one town over from my hometown where I grew up, and I was in the military for a couple of years. I went to school, got my degree in mental health, and I did a little bit of work once I graduated, but it wasn't long after that when my wife got pregnant with our first son, and I decided she has a really great career, and I had just started mine, so I was like, hey, why don't I stay home with the kids, or the kid at the time. And he's 3.5 now, and my other son is 1.5. So, I just kind of been staying home with the kids. And this past winter, I was actually last fall, I went and saw up in Bangor. I saw Joe Hill. He did a live book signing up there at Books A Million, which this was pre-pandemic, which we had no idea what we were in for. And then in December, I saw Richard Chismar, his son Billy, and a couple of awesome artists, including Glenn Campbell, who lives in Maine. He does a lot of horror art for Stephen King and a bunch of other authors. And I honestly was inspired by Richard's stories and his just drive to want to be a writer. And he said he started around when in the 80s when it came out. He was in college. He had no idea what he was doing. And he read it and wanted to be a writer. And honestly, on my way home from Bangor, it's about an 1.5-hour drive, I kind of started getting the gears turning. I've always enjoyed writing. I had a hard time reading most of my life because of my attention span and stuff. But something clicked last year. And by February this year, I told my wife, I'm going to buy a laptop and I want to start writing. Yeah.
So you got the laptop to write. You know what? That is awesome. I gotta say, you know, Stephen King has had such a huge influence on me. Hey, what's up? Happy New Year, bro. Let me see who that is. I shouldn't be taking my glasses off. It's total disaster. This is bad YouTubing, guys. Up for reviews. Welcome, welcome. So when I was growing up, and I write about this, I publish about this too. I grew up in Yuma, Arizona. I'm a first generation American, and I've always been a writer since I was a kid. World building. But my father always grew up in these isolated places. He was trying to avoid racists, which didn't happen, but you know, so we were very isolated and bored as fuck. I tell you what. And I read in Spanish, I read in English, I read Revelations in the Bible. Big fucking mistake when you're in second grade, bro. Big mistake. But Stephen King, I'll tell you what book was like. I read almost all of his work. Not so much the current stuff, but the old school stuff. You know, The Talisman. I tell you what. I had nightmares about that shit for days. I was always traveling on that train, and there was something so, I don't know, impactful about this little boy going into this alternate world. I'm actually rereading it again. But at the same time, Reagan was happening. And there was this fear of nuclear war, and then the day after had come out. I don't know if I got my chronology straight, but all that, man. And I started writing dystopian lit when I was a kid, you know? And I remember I wrote my very first zombie story. It was an original. It was like caused by nuclear holocaust. But I remember I had this nightmare when I was eaten alive in my nightmare. And that was it, man. I was hooked on hooked on post-apocalypse, nuclear stories, you name it. And the funny thing is that, do I have a copy of my anthology? Oh, hold up. This right here, I don't know how this happened. This is the proof of an anthology that I put out. I've gotten better at magic realism than horror, but I so want to be a horror writer. And I don't want to be a Stephen King. I want to be a Jesus horror writer. And I suck at it. And I'm like, oh, you know? The one novelette I published called La Bruja, that I thought was going to be hot shit. I didn't even want to tell you about my sales, man. It tanked. And then I remember the editors, I mean, shut up, I'll stop babbling about me. The editor says to me, your main character is fundamental and likable. And I was like, the fuck? And then another data reader was like, I don't like your main character. So I was like, fine, you know? So I haven't tried to write anything really horror since then, but it's embarrassing, bro. It's embarrassing. So do you say horror right now is your main genre, or do you write in multiple genres?
No, I kind of stick to horror right now. I don't know. I like fantasy, but I don't know what drew me to horror. I grew up watching the Stephen King movies on TV, and I remember being a little kid and crying in my room because I was so scared of like Freddy Krueger. Like I was afraid to go to sleep. And I don't know, and I was like 5 years old when I first saw Child's Play, the original Child's Play.
Yeah.
Something about horror has always just stuck with me. I had a hard time for a while watching like horror movies and gore when I first got out of the military.
For sure.
And stuff. And even as far as like as recent as the new It that came out, I watched the newest one, Chapter 2, and everything was fine. But there was a really realistic scene in the movie that took place, and I literally went and started having a panic attack. And I started pouring sweat. My wife was like, I told her I'm going to go to the bathroom and just catch my breath. And I ended up walking to the bathroom, and I passed out cold in the lobby.
Damn, bro.
Woke up on the floor. People were looking at me like I was on drugs or something, and they were really nice though. And yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of this weird dynamic where I love horror, and I love to write it. It's almost like therapeutic for me.
Sure.
To be able to tap into that, genre.
Yeah, totally. And there's something about horror that I don't know. I'm the same way. I love horror. I've watched horror my whole life, just about. I was hooked on the Friday the 13th series. On that, as soon as that came out, everything horror comics, horror books, horror movies. When VHS came out, forget it, dude. There wasn't a day that my dad didn't go run a VHS where I was like, yeah, I gotta hit up that horror section. And I was a little kid. I shouldn't have been watching this shit, but I was like, Stephen King for sure. As soon as his film started coming out, and I remember when The Stand came out on TV, brother, I taped it and I watched it over and over and over. Pretty amazing. By the way, there's a new TV series out. Who's playing it? CBS.
Yeah.
Because I want to, my husband let me get he sounds like he's a tight ass, but he's not. I got the CBS subscription, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. It does really good with flashbacks. But so that's amazing though. Do you, since the horror is kind of therapeutic for you, do you ever write about your military days, or is it too close to that right now?
Well, I kind of felt like I had a little more leeway with Scratches because the character, there is a protagonist in the book. No, I'm sorry, antagonist. He was actually in the military, and I kind of, without getting too far into spoilers, this is early on in the book, he actually served in the military, and there was some things that they find out about him that is not too pleasant, but I know it's kind of taboo, and a lot of people don't like to bring those things up about like the horrors of war and things like that. So I don't know. I felt like I had a little more leeway with that, but I haven't necessarily addressed anything that I've dealt with in the military, because I did do a tour in Iraq, and it's I think that might have added to my drive to write horror as well, because sometimes you don't know how to process things that you think of and you deal with, and sometimes it's nice to have that outlet.
For sure. No, I understand. Hey, so that's a great segue. Can you read part of Scratches for us?
Sure. Let me see here. Yeah. So anyway, this is Scratches. This was my debut. I started writing this in February, and I finished it I ended up self-publishing it in around May. I had no idea what I was doing. Literally came up with an idea, wrote it, and put it out. And this is a second edition that I ended up having an editor, Elle Turpit. She ended up going over it and editing it for me. And I feel like it's a much better story, and it's better formatted, edited, and all that stuff. Let me see what we got here.
Real quick, just for being a self-published, because I started independently published. The book is really well put together. It's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
And the back too, it's ballsy to use red, bro, but it looks really good on there.
Yeah, I mean, I did everything. I watched YouTube videos and learned, and then Ross Jeffrey, Ross, we hooked up right before I put this out, and he actually he beta read it for me and said, hey, and I didn't even know what a blurb was, but he actually said, hey, if I like it, I can write something for you to blurb it, and he was writing a blurb for me. Yeah, so
Ross is a wonderful human being. Yeah, I'll gush about Ross until you find your passage. What? Yeah, and he's a bit of a snob sometimes when it comes to horror, but big up, man.
Yeah, no, he was great. He, he and I kind of like hit it off right away, and he, he's been awesome. I love his books. I've read all his books so far. He actually sent me a couple signed ones. So nice.
I'm jealous.
I can give a basic, for people who haven't read it or don't know anything about it. It starts basically. I'll read the back of it real quick. It's really quick.
Sure, no, go for it.
A mother and son with a strained relationship inherit a house following the sudden death of a family member with a violent past. When the son moves his bedroom into the basement, he starts to experience unexplainable and terrifying phenomena. After he uncovers a dark secret concealed in the house, they quickly learn that some truths are better left a mystery. Can they overcome their differences in order to survive, or will the darkness consume them both? And let me see. I wanted to read maybe a different passage that I haven't read yet.
Sure. And I got to tell you, that's one of my favorite horror scenarios.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you the backstory behind it, because there is a backstory. Let me just see.
Oh, I hear your littles in the background.
Yeah, they're going to bed. They're
They hear you talking, and they're like, "What? He's awake."
They do. So let me just do I'll do a couple paragraphs here or something. It won't take long. This is from chapter 3. The house was in a state of disrepair after years of neglect by Janet's father, George. He had built it on a cheap piece of property approximately 25 feet away from an aging cemetery, a rusted chain link fence surrounding its perimeter. By no coincidence, it was the same cemetery that harbored the coffin containing his battered and rotting corpse. He was laid to rest in a modified position of attention with his arms laying across his chest as opposed to lying at his side like a proper Marine. Connor was thrilled when his mother told him they were moving into her childhood home after his grandfather passed away under mysterious circumstances. This would be the first real house he'd ever lived in. He had never met his grandfather and didn't know much about him. They didn't have any pictures of his grandparents, nor did they hold a viewing prior to his burial, so he didn't even know what he looked like. The sealed coffin he saw as he peeked through the window on the day of his burial was the closest he had ever come to a proper introduction. Although he heard enough from his mother to know he didn't care to meet the man. Even though Janet didn't seem excited, she was at least happy that they were moving out of the rundown 2-bedroom apartment in the city where they had been living for most of her son's life. The apartment building's hallway always smelled like marijuana or urine. People were slamming doors or yelling at each other. Their flat, paper-thin walls were and only one window that could open. All that being said, the rent was cheap, and it was all his mother could afford on her minimum wage income from the store. So
nice.
It's basically, that's just like kind of an introduction to kind of explain the situation that they were in before. It doesn't tell much about the story, but it kind of does. It's basically about a mother and son, Connor and Janet. The Connor is he's a 12-year-old boy. This takes place in like the late 90s, which was, I'm 36. So I was close to Connor's age at that time. I was about 14 years old. He was about 12. And it's about a mother and son. They inherit this house of her father that she didn't care for, didn't like at all. But because she cares about her son, she wanted to, move back into this house because it was better than their apartment that they were living in. Right. And it was free, it was taken care of. And the backstory is kind of interesting because I based it off of the home that I grew up in, which was a newer home than this one. It was actually built in like 1990, but it actually was built about 25 feet away from a cemetery on the road I grew up on. And when I was probably Connor's age, 11, 12, I can't remember exactly, I ended up moving my bedroom. I had a small bedroom upstairs. I had 2 sisters and my single mom growing up. I moved my bedroom into the basement. I moved everything down there by myself, similar to the first chapter story. And it didn't really dawn on me until I was a little older that where I was sleeping was, 30 feet away from these dead bodies that were buried in the ground. The story came to me when I was driving home from the book signing with Richard Chismar, and I was, because things were, churning in my brain, and I was like, I gotta, I can come up with a story. Originally I was just gonna write a little short story about my experience, and originally I wanted to do like this kid moving into the basement, and he had him and his mother didn't get along very well, and he could hear scratching on the outside of the foundation, and it was these people in the cemetery trying to get into him. But I mean, as it happens, when you start writing, things just come to you, ideas come to you. When you stop writing for the night and you go to bed, ideas just flood your brain, and you know what I mean. It's kind of this weird phenomenon, like right. And that's kind of where it came from. Was this whole situation kind of just came to me, and the story came to me as I was writing it, and it's much different than what I had originally thought of. Never had I thought that I was going to write a prequel story. That kind of came to me after I had finished, and then I was like, because I actually am planning a trilogy with this story, and so when a lot of people read the ending and they're like, well, that's kind of ambiguous. Well, there's a reason for that, and some people don't know that I am planning a third part of the story to finish it off. But that makes me happy too, because a lot of the reviews I've seen say, this is too short. It needs to be longer. I need more story.
Yeah.
and that's kind of what pushed me to want to actually add to this story. And
right.
You know, that's where.
That's funny. I get that criticism too, and I think sometimes that's why I get low reviews, because first of all, readers want everything for free. Which, come on, guys, we got to make our bread too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when they say that, even if it's a 3 or 4 star, I actually think it's a compliment. You know, that they want to hear more about your story. Do you think at some point you're going to put them all together in one volume? Do you think?
I could see me doing that. You know, my buddy Michael Clark did that recently with his Patience of a Dead Man series, which he's also a first-time author, and his book is knocking it out of the park. I've read the first one so far.
Nice.
Same thing. He wrote 3 books, and then he put them together. And the thing is with mine, it's almost like Star Wars. Like, you want to read scratches first, because when you read my next story that we're going to talk about, it's called Severed. I just did a cover review recently. Nice. You'll appreciate that story much more, because you kind of have an idea of what is going on, and then you'll appreciate some of the things that are in that story, and it's kind of like the root of what happens in Scratches. And I really like the way that's coming out. I'm just about done with it. I'm planning on a February 17th release of this year. It's now this year.
Right.
My birthday, actually. I kind of just.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Well, it'll be February 17th. But that's that was my plan, was
awesome
to do it. I kind of just threw that date out there. Once I got the cover, kind of set myself, you know, as writers, we like to punish ourselves and give ourselves these, you know, fake self-made deadlines.
Sure, for sure.
You know,
and that's true. I mean, you're only competing against yourself when you own your own work, which I think is one of the beauties about self-publishing. Have you found that the voice, because it's the same protagonist, right? The kid from the basement.
Yeah, his name is Connor. Yeah,
Connor. Right. No, I read a good chunk of it. I just didn't get to the end. Bad YouTuber. No, but do you find that the voice is changing from Scratches to Severed, or is it consistent?
I feel, you know, it's a totally, it's similar, but because it focuses, it's actually back in time. It's a prequel, and there's more characters.
I see.
It kind of explains why the antagonist is the way he is, and a lot of people are like, you know, oh, what's going on, and that's the idea. And actually, it is. I feel like it is a much different story. Like, this was very simple. It's a haunting story. People liked it because it kind of felt like a creep show or Goosebumps. But Severed is a completely different type of story, but it ties in like seamlessly. And that's what was so fun about writing it, was because you know, it is a completely different story. There's more characters, and I don't know. I'm really happy with the way it's coming out, and I think people will enjoy it if they dug this book. I think they're gonna really enjoy it. And
you know what? And I'll tell you what, not to jinx it, but even if they don't, the fact that you love your work, you know what it's about, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and I mean,
and you have guts, hermano, because you're taking the story in a different direction. First of all, you're writing a prequel, which holla to you. That's not easy to do. A good prequel is difficult, I think. I thought about doing a prequel myself to really reveal she's not an antagonist. She was kind of in the first story, but I do think that takes skill. You know what I'm saying? And it sounds like a fantastic. I'm gonna buy it, bro. I'm already putting it on my mental TBR when it comes out. You know, and I look forward to beta reading that too, because I love beta reading stuff. But that's cool. It sounds really awesome. And I mean, and they are interconnected. You know, I was YouTubing about something. I don't remember now. I love what the Brits do when they have these stories that are loosely connected, but the protagonist changes. And when I first saw that style, it was in the Enemy series. I don't know if you read the Enemy series. It's a zombie post-apocalypse young adult, really well written. It was a series of 6 books. And at first, as an American reader, I'm like, what the flip is going on, yo? Because one section was about these 3 young kids surviving, and then the next chapter was a completely different protagonist, and onward. And I was like, what the flip? But it was all interrelated. It sounds a little, not quite like that, but it sounds somewhat like that. And that right there, I think, also takes a lot of skill. Because for me, it's easier to hang on to one point of view throughout a narrative, right? But when you go from young Connor to the antagonist and other characters to wherever you're going to with the third in the series, it takes a lot of skill, man. And that says a lot about where you're at, you know, in your craft. So that's awesome, dude. Props to you. You know,
Thanks.
yeah, totally. And that you're putting it out there. Which also takes guts. Hey, what's up, viewers? We have 2 people watching. What? Holla. Ask a question. Chat in the comments. And I know Joshua would be more than happy to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions, any comments? More than welcome.
Yeah. So, what do you think, having had this experience now, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about, you know, self-publishing or looking for an agent? What advice do you have for them?
Well, you got to take a risk, and really, self-publishing is one of those things that, you know, people kind of like, they think, you know, they think you're taking a risk, first of all, by self-publishing, because people don't take you as seriously. And they think, you know, oh, this guy wasn't good enough to go through a traditional publisher, when it's actually a lot of, the biggest thing for me was time. It wasn't that I wasn't confident in my story. It was that I didn't have the time. I wasn't ready to commit the time to actually, you know, submit to and honestly, I didn't even know what submitting was. I was learning the language completely brand new. I was just a book reader. I didn't know anything about the author, you know, the whole game that you got to play. So when I realized you can self-publish and you can put your own book out there and you don't have to wait and you don't have to do all these things, the biggest thing is if you have a story and you're confident in it, a lot of people that are writers, that are new writers, they'll self-publish to begin with, just to get their name out there, get their stuff out there, and then eventually, like, maybe your book is actually picked up by a publisher and they like it. So I recommend, if you don't want to take the time to wait, because I mean, it can take months, years. I mean, you hear all these horror stories about Stephen King getting like hundreds of rejections from publishers, and this is back, you know, getting hundreds of rejections from his stories that obviously are beloved by so many people. It's one of those things, like, if you don't feel like you have the patience to do that, look into self-publishing. On self-publishing, you have to wear so many different hats, and you have to put up a little bit of money. I mean,
that's legit. Yeah,
I did all my own editing. I did all my own formatting. You have to look into that. You want to make a professional-looking product, but at the same time, you know, you are responsible for everything. So a lot of the early reviews were like, I love the story, I love the way it was going, but there was some typos, there was some formatting errors, and you have to have thick skin, because once I got a lot of reviews saying that, I was like, you know what, maybe I should put in a little bit of money, you know, to format this thing.
That's a mistake I made when I first started self-publishing, because I did the same thing. And Holler to Uptown Horror Review says it's actually quite remarkable that Joshua has done all of this in such a short span of time. But the truth is, the information is out there. I did the YouTube videos. I actually reached out to a friend of mine, Eric Allen Yankee, who does make his bread self-publishing. He's a romance writer. I don't really care for romance, but he makes his bread. So he helped me format the very first book that I published. And I made mistakes. I learned a lot. And now, dude, I'll tell you what. For me, I'm a hybrid author. I've been traditionally and non-traditionally published. I don't have an agent. I thought about seeking one, but my issue is control. I love to design my own covers. Like, this is probably one of the most beautiful covers. The artwork is by Norbert Samozi. I have a contract with a cover designer who
that is nice.
Who just she's awesome. But the thing is that you gotta have to put in some coin when you self-publish. And at first I was hesitant because I wanted to do everything for free. And I'm like, nah, dude, I pay the cover designer, and I'm a union person too. I pay fair wage, you know. For that, I was at one point advertising. I realized it really wasn't worth it, you know. But I paid for the internal artwork too, because I realized that it costs a lot of money to get like an artist to do that, and different things. I pay for the editor, pay that coin. It's worth it, because I have a PhD, not to brag, but I do have a PhD in English. I do. I mean, part of grading is looking for mistakes, and I miss shit. And because you're looking at your own manuscript over and over again, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And at some level, if you're self-publishing, you gotta forgive yourself, brothers and sisters and others, because it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so just let it go, man. You publish your piece with the pecadillos in there, and then you improve the file.
Yeah.
So yeah, put money into it. I made that mistake. Pay, fine. Oh, and never, ever, ever, ever do work without a contract. Get your contracts, because you will get screwed.
Yeah.
And I hate to say, your friends will not have time for you, bro. They just won't. So you got to find somebody to have a good rapport with. I happen to have a fantastic editor who I know is busy right now. I honor him too. I respect him. Oh, so here's a question. It looks like for my son. How has self-publishing reinvented itself and attracted new hybrid authors? And what are the myths? Oh, what a fantastic question. Thank you, Antonio.
That is a really good question.
My son's
there's a lot. The thing is with, I mean, even 10 years ago, because of like the growth of Amazon and things like that, I kind of went with KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, which is, you write your own manuscript, you basically submit it to the Kindle, you make an account on Kindle Direct Publishing, and you have to come up with your cover art and all those different things. You have to format it to be, so this is a 6x9. And basically, I was in charge of designing. Okay, so the cover art was by my good friend Dave Dick from Pennsylvania. No, I'm sorry. I believe he's in Jersey. He is an artist. I literally found him on, I think it was Instagram. While I was looking for covers, I loved his design, like his artistic style. And I just messaged him and I said, hey, man, do you do commissions? Would you be willing to, for a book cover, would you be willing to do this? And basically he designed the art. He did the cover title and that. The rest of this, everything else I had to do on KDP, which is, it's super easy to use.
Oh, yeah.
You basically upload your own manuscript, but the manuscript is what you're seeing on the inside of the book.
Right.
So all these things, you have to kind of educate yourself on how to make a book look professional. And the thing with that, it's the hardest part of this whole thing was making the inside look like a somewhat professional book.
Oh, I know. I had the same struggle with not to keep talking about, I'm just really proud of this.
Yeah, and I mean, so
this part, check it out.
This is the second edition. It's it's much nicer, I think.
You did a beautiful job with your headers. I noticed that around.
Thank you.
This section work is a lot of work. It's a lot.
It is. That was really the hardest thing was sitting. Yeah. I use Google Docs and.
Ooh, Lord have mercy, brother! Get your Microsoft Word.
Well, the thing is, I have a Google Chrome laptop, and you use eDoc, and then you can convert it. I can send it over to my PC, and anyway, I'm getting distracted here, but so basically, you use KDP and you put your book out there, and once you go through, they'll actually check through the manuscript, make sure everything's okay. And that's for the paperback edition. And if you want to do a Kindle edition, there's a couple different Kindle apps. I use Kindle Create, which I kind of regret now because they don't let you get a what's called a Mobi file, which is a Kindle file that you can send to reviewers. So I end up having half the time either sending a PDF file or a paperback. I just end up paying a paperback. Yeah. But what's cool about it is you have control over the cover art, everything. You put it all in there. You can set your own price. And with KDP, there's different. It's called what's called royalties, and everything is you can set. You don't really get to set it, but you have a couple different choices of how your royalties work. And what they do is the only thing that cost me any money out of the first edition I did was the cover art. I paid for the cover art. Covers books, sell books. Whether you believe it or not, they sell books. This cover is simple, but a lot of people have they love it. They're like, man, I want to get that book just because of the cover art. It's so
I mean, it looks really great on the phone too, So one says with thousands of words, you're always going to miss stuff. Absolutely. And I don't know if it's he or she or they. Says Google Chrome laptops bring a lot of headaches. I hate them. I have a Mac. Yeah, power to the Mac. No,
that's a new.
You did a great job.
You know, I was a newbie. It was affordable.
Yeah, I gotta say this too, that even when you publish traditional, you still have to hustle.
Yeah.
You still have to market your work. You still have to work on your socials. You still have to grow your reader base. And if you go with a small press, it's the same, right? Because you're gonna like I own a small press, right? And it's charity press, so it's another one of those. I put a lot of money into it and give to the cause, you know, which is great. But when I do gigs for my authors and whatnot, I mean, it's a hustle. It's a hustle. Yeah. Yo, we gotta give ups and props to Uptown Horror Reviews. Says I always judge a book by the cover. Stop talking about your love life, bro. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's awesome. Yeah, and it's become more of the cover is crucial. I think especially when you see it on mobile or whatever. But for sure, it's just done just a brilliant job. And I saw the cover for Severed. That is a thing of beauty, and maybe we could share that. Is it on your Twitter?
Yeah, I think it's my pinned yeah.
Right, let's do this.
I actually have a couple prints coming in. The artist Dave Dick. I use the same artist.
Same one. Brilliant.
Kind of did the same format, but with this cover, I actually sent him the manuscript and had him read it because I wasn't too sure of myself. But he came up with this all on himself. This is the stairwell in the house.
Oh, you showing it right now? I'm trying to show him something. I apologize.
Yeah, no, and he came up with that whole. He gave me 2 options, and that was the one I picked. And then with the next one, I actually scribbled a little idea that I came up with. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so which one is this one?
It's the bottom right.
Yeah, and you know what else I love about this cover?
Yeah.
The font is it's not exactly the same, but the font kind of reminds. No offense to the graphic artist, it reminds me a little bit of Slender Man, but I think how you use the red, how the artist used the red in here pops. It is a beautiful cover. And then it has these kind of undertones of like the cabin in the woods and like this American icon when it comes to cabins. I love it. I think it's Bob.
Yeah, a lot of people who have read Scratches, they think they have an idea of what this cabin means, where the story's going because of the story in Scratches, but I think they're going to be surprised. I think it makes sense when you actually read the story, but I think they're going to be really pleasantly surprised when they can kind of see because this in Scratches, the stairwell is pretty iconic. It's actually one of the first things you read about in the book. Connor's loading his bedroom, furniture down the stairs. And with that cover for the sequel, with the prequel, it's pretty much the central part of the story, and it actually,
nice.
I don't want to give too much away, but I'm really super happy with Dick. Basically, Dave, he came up with that one all on his own. I gave him a little scribble, and he did the rest. Like he's just an awesome artist. I love the guy. He's
and that's somebody you want to hang on to, because it looks like he's really great work.
And he'll be doing my third cover as well. Like I want this series to be all the same, aesthetics, the same style, and I just love it. And a lot of people have said, "Man, I want to read that just because of that picture. Like it looks awesome."
For sure. No, who knows, man? I look forward to getting a copy myself.
Awesome.
No, that's amazing. And you've gotten quite a number of reviews, which is, let me tell you what, I joke about this, but damn, dude, it takes some damn goat sacrifices to get people to review books. And you know what aggravates me to no end? Oh my gosh, fucking infuriates me. Pardon my Latin. No, don't pardon, that's how I talk. Somebody messaging me, "Oh, I loved your book, and I love that. I'm like, okay, now go on, post that 5-star review on Amazon. They won't do it. And I'm just, what the shit, dude?
I think a lot of it has to do with some people are insecure about. They feel like they have to write a long review. They feel like they have to get like pretentious and wordy, and it's not really like that. Even Amazon will let you just post a rating without even writing any words. And a lot of people, I'm the same way. I used to be really shy about writing reviews because I didn't want to sound stupid, because you see all these amazing reviewers that, they write like paragraphs of reviews you know, that are almost more poetic than the book itself. But
they're tryhards, bro. They're tryhards.
The biggest thing with me being self-published was the biggest hurdle to get over was the, you know, what they call imposter syndrome, and you really have to. It's feeling like you don't belong in this, you know, this field of authors. There's so many. I mean, especially 2020 seems like there was so many amazing books that came out. Even like you know, not self-titled but or self-published, but like indie presses and small presses. They put out so many damn good books, and I've read. I mean, I started pretty much only reading like Stephen King to now. I mean, there's so many small presses that I love, and I'm reading all their books, and that's it. You really gotta like just, you know, put yourself out there, and if you really want to get into this job, this, you know, writing, it takes a lot of guts. I mean, I
agree.
I've done a lot of self like promotion, which is one of the worst parts of the whole thing. Is like, hey, you know, I know the world is ending, but buy my book. You know?
Yeah, you know, that's funny you mention that. I try to do, because I do too much socials. This is the truth. But I tried to do to try to amplify and grow my reader base. And this is Pagan Malcolm, who's relatively successful with her self-publishing. And she's like, well, you're a professor, you know, why don't you do a reading group on Facebook? So I thought, well, shit, all right. So we started with The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which didn't really care for the book, but I love her work. I just didn't care for this novel. Too much hype. But then we tried doing Adrian J. Walker's. See if I have the book around here. The End of the World Running Club. And Adrian is one of my favorite finds. I found this book in the bookstore. My husband bought it for me because he was apologizing for something. And I'm a college professor by trade. I started teaching it in my composition and my creative writing class. And shit, I lost my train of thought. But so I thought, oh, we're gonna read this and it's gonna be phenomenal. And I had college professors in the group, moms, you name it, and they're like, "No, hey, so we can't do it during the pandemic. It's too heavy."
Yeah.
Kill the reading group. And now it's like, fuck you, pandemic. Not only have you been messing with my reading, because I was so anxious for a long time, I couldn't read and I couldn't write. I did a lot of other stuff, book related, but I just couldn't. I swear, like I lost like half a year. And now I'm just kind of getting back into it, writing poetry and stories and essays and publishing stuff again. But it's been a struggle. But you're right. At the same time that there were those of us who got our asses kicked by the pandemic, there were writers who were producing presses, putting out a book once a month. And I was like, do you sleep? Like what? You know? Really high quality work though. So Uptown says, I also think a lot of people don't understand the system and don't understand that reviews help the author. I agree. Those reviews are key. You know, and you couldn't give an author a better Christmas gift short of buying the book for a friend than to give a positive review, you know?
And I mean, a lot of the time, I mean, I even have like certain booktubers that either they bought my book and, you know, or I sent them review copies. You see, like when they review your book, I mean, you see results. Like with KDP, you can actually see when somebody buys your book or when they're reading it on Kindle Unlimited. You can see the results from that. And I mean, I've had, I can't remember if it was just a short reading I did or something, but like I had 5 books sold one day after a booktuber posted a video about my book. And
nice.
You know, and you have to really put yourself out there, and you have to be willing not only to put yourself out there, but take some criticism. And part of the criticisms with my first draft was the editing, or not just the editing, but like there was a couple typos and a couple different things that were wrong with it. And, you know, I was like, that's fine, that's great. And then after a while, I was like, you know, maybe I could, you know, do my readers a solid and actually go back, do another, you know, do another whole draft. And that's when you kind of realize, like, when people do second editions, I kept the cover all the same and everything, but the guts of the story were improved, and that's important to me. I want my readers to have the best product they can get.
I agree 100%. In fact, I actually feel cheated when they just put out the same book, exactly the same book, with like a forward. I'm like, dude, what? So actually, the one thing I messed up on this, and it was only because the pandemic, like I said, fucked me up, but I really wanted to get this charity volume out, and it came out, the timing was actually pretty good because the money was going to Doctors Without Borders. And unless like a revolution happens and there's free healthcare worldwide, the money for Unity is always going to go to Doctors Without Borders for all of my anthologies, right? But what I messed up was that I didn't ask anybody to write a foreword. And the foreword actually would have been good for this anthology if it gets picked up by college classes to kind of contextualize it a little more. So I'm actually going through the process. And at this point, it's just confetti, bro. We're just nitpicking. Because I have an editorial team and we're going over it again. But I got tired of looking at it. And so I told the editorial board today, I'm like, you know what? Don't think you're doing this work in vain. I'm going to put those changes into the next one because I feel pretty confident about this piece that we put out. And the writers have, I told all 50 writers, I'm like, if you find any mistakes or blah, 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 please email me. And just 2 people got back to me. So if more do, we should. I thank you for pointing the mistakes out. First of all, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to tell me what I can improve. And then Absolutely. It's going to be, but I agree with you, brother. You and I are kindred spirits in that regard, is that the edition should be better than the first one. You know, and it shouldn't be just about making coin. I really do think that once you grab the imagination of your readers, you owe it to them, not just to do better, but to level up.
Absolutely.
With, you know?
Yeah, and that's been very important to me, especially with the next book and this next edition. In fact, when I first put this second edition out, I actually did a free, because the other thing with KDP, the Kindle Direct Publishing, is you can control your own promotions. So I ended up, because Kindle is ebook, it's very cheap. You know, your royalties are very little, but also the cost of the book is little. I ended up doing a free promotion back around Thanksgiving, and I was absolutely blown away by the response. I ended up giving away over 900 something copies of my book. And then I just did another one right Christmas Day and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. 400 something more people ended up picking up my book, and I was totally blown away. And that's free of charge, absolutely no royalties to me. But the fact that like 1,300 something people were interested in reading my book, those are people that, because I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when things were getting really hard for people had no money, they're losing their jobs. So many indie authors were putting their work out there for free on Twitter, just saying, hey, if you need something to do while you're in quarantine, please pick up my book. Enjoy, read, whatever. And that was completely amazing. And I love that when people did that. So I did the same thing. And, you know, on the other side of that is all those people might be interested in your book. They might be like your writing. They may be willing to pick up the next book.
Yeah, for sure.
If they enjoy it, they may write you a review, whether it's good or bad. It doesn't matter. The more reviews have, the bet. Like, I mean, I don't know how many times I've picked up a book or looked at a book on Amazon and I'm like, oh, it's got like 2 reviews, you know, it's, you know, or if you see a book that has like 50 or 100 reviews, it's like, you know, it does help. Like Uptown said, it really does help when. Oh,
I agree 100%. And I think that's totally on point. I haven't done a freebie in a while, but I also had all my books free on Smashwords because I have different things on different platforms. And it got downloaded a lot. And I had to also tell myself, you know what? Don't get sad if they don't review it. The fact that they actually downloaded it, I think it's a kudos, man. 1,300. Look, and that's what the point is. You want to get your stories out there. You know? So I think, brother, you're welcome on my show anytime. I would love to have you come talk virtually to the college. I think students would love to hear you talk, you know? I do pay a little coin, not a lot, but I pay something, you know? Because I'm not independently wealthy. I wish I were. Oh, husband, I hope you're not listening to this. Okay, anyway, moving on. Hey, so where can our viewers find you on your socials? I know you're on Twitter. You want to?
I'm on Twitter, and for anyone interested in self-publishing, one of the biggest things that's helped me has been my Instagram. And I started off as like reviewing books on Instagram and just promoting books for other people. And that I started gaining a following on there. So once I started
you did like video reviews on Instagram?
I don't do, I post like my Goodread reviews. I don't do video reviews or anything, but that was kind of like the beginning. And then when I started like writing my story, I started putting little pictures out there like, hey, I'm going to be putting out a book pretty soon. If anyone's interested. So many amazing people on Bookstagram. There's a huge community of people on Bookstagram.
You know what? I'm such a dork. I've been trying to figure out where it's at, and Instagram is a mystery for me still. Like, I get Twitter, I get Facebook, but Instagram, oh, dude, you just blew me away, bro. Because I think I'm gonna try doing the same thing.
Yeah. So all you have to do is look up my name. There's not very. I think there's like one other Joshua Marsella, probably.
So I'm gonna post these in the comments.
Yeah. So
awesome.
I use these. They're my author accounts. They're my personal accounts. I don't have separate, things. I just do everything all together. I'm very.
You're busy, Dad, because you're a dad.
Yeah, I mean, I stay home. I share pictures of my kids, of books I'm reading, things I'm working on. I'm just probably an oversharer, but I like humor. I also write horror. That's just who I am. You know what I mean? I love to read books.
I'm the same.
Promote a lot of other people's books.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I feel from you is that you're like me. You like to elevate other writers. So it's not just about. And that is part of the reason I started Body Blues Press, because I wanted to give writers a chance who I knew weren't going to get an agent anytime soon, who weren't going to be picked up by, freaking big time publishers, Random House, or City Lights if they're poets. And this is a place where they could get a voice,
Yeah.
And it is a charity press, but when the writer wants, we do a 50-50 split. They get 50% of the profits and the other 50 go to the charity. But I tell you what, big hearts in this writing community that all the writers who've gotten a contract with Body Blues are giving all their money to charity. Wow. That right there is freaking amazing, dude.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it for that reason. Just that, just to see writers are generous people for the most part. Like, arrogant narcissists here and there. But they're givers. They want to share. They share their stories. They give their books for free, whenever possible. They also got to make their bread, though, and that's why reviews are so important, But well, listen.
Myself, I don't do this. I do this for a hobby. I don't do it for a living. A lot of people do it for a living, or they want to do it for a living. This is just a hobby of mine. So I actually have.
See, no, bro, don't knock it, man. Maybe look, I call it my mission, my passion.
Yeah. I'd love to do it like full time. Right now, like I have a story that just came out with Alien Agenda Publishing that I donated for author Glenn Rolfe. He's my hometown hero. We live in the same town. He's a really amazing author. He asked to write a story for a sampler for his indie press that he has. So I did that. He offered money. I said, I don't want the money. I don't want, just keep it. I'll send you a story. Same thing with Grinning Skull Press was the first contract I actually signed with a Christmas anthology they do every year. It's a charity anthology to help promote, to donate to an AIDS foundation. I said, I will buy my own book. I will do all that. You guys take all the money and put it towards the charity. So I actually did that, and I have 2 stories that are out with those. If you're interested, look up my socials. They're both posted on there. All the money goes to charity or to support a small indie press.
Nice.
The ones I've submitted to, awesome. And then in February I do have my second book coming out, which I'm very proud of. And but I totally recommend you read Scratches first, because I think you'll appreciate it a lot more.
Hey, and Ups, if you, I would be down with having that be the next book on our oh my gosh, it's like 6:51. This is getting tired. The virtual book club that I run, because I'm not gonna go in person and do a book. Hell no, man. Let's do it via Zoom, or even like this. That I think there's gonna be more space for that, to be able to have a genuine discussion about books. And find another community to build on. So invitations open, hermano. Hey, thank you for coming on Radical Books and Politics. Absolutely. It is my pleasure. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for putting up with my post-nap persona. So let me remind this This is Adam Gottlieb of One Love, who produces songs especially for my channel called Libera Radicalmente. And it's been a pleasure, Joshua. You're welcome on my show anytime.
Thank you so much.
Really Sever comes out, and I look forward to that beta reading. So you want to give a few parting words to aspiring writers? You've done a brilliant job, but any last gem of advice you want to give?
Write, read as much as you can. The biggest thing that inspired me was reading amazing books, indie presses, big presses, anything you can get your hands on, read it. I guarantee you'll be inspired to write, and take that chance and write that story that you have, you know, clogging up your brain, and you'll feel so much better once you get it out. Reach out to people and ask them questions. Everyone is willing to help. Seriously.
That's the truth. You'll find a wonderful community. Hey, well, listen, I loved it. I'm going to totally do a clip of that right there just to inspire people. That was close out with Do What You Love to the Max, like reading, Scratches, and Severed, which is coming out in February. Thanks a lot, brother. Peace.
Thank you.
Hey.